What's up? Welcome back to Modern Course. I am John at John JH Coyle. I'm here with Casey at ModCom Podcast. Casey, how you doing over there, buddy?
Hey, John. I'm doing pretty good. Can't complain too much. Been on this crazy content production cycle, and it's a
wild.
lot, but it's exciting. It's fun. Learning a lot really fast, and I guess we'll talk about that on some episodes here in the near future.
Yeah, we should. I was thinking about it, and I was like, we're gonna be probably when this is going like full bore, we're gonna probably be creating like 25 unique pieces of content per week, including this show, Modern Commerce. I got a special one for you today. I planned it, and we're going to do some story time. I'm going to tell you a couple stories, a couple business related stories, give you what I feel maybe are some takeaways, or we can just both kind of riff on some takeaways. And we are going to do that right after a quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Reconvert, a Shopify app that will instantly help you increase your average order value. So after somebody places an order, they pay now. My orders being processed. The number one way that we have found to increase average order value is the post-purchase one-click upsell, which looks just like this. After somebody buys, you make them another offer, and if they take it, it is instantly added to their order. Best way to increase AOV.
That's true, John, but it's not perfect for every brand and every customer for every brand. So one of the other tools that not very many brands are taking advantage of right now is using this confirmation page as real estate to be pitching offers here as well. People are going to be coming back to this page quite often, checking on the status for their orders, and it's a great place to be pitching them other products. It won't be a one-click upsell, but an upsell nonetheless. Great place to get extra conversions. People might reconvert even. So head on over to reconvert.io to increase your average order value today.
What if I were to tell you that the biggest baller that ever existed in any business was a simple banana salesman, just a fruit peddler, simple fruit peddler. This guy was so influential that he actually was pretty instrumental in creating the state of Israel. He ran 2 government coups, and he basically created a monopoly in the American fruit industry. Pretty crazy, right?
Jeff, how old? When was this story?
Well, we'll get into it. Yeah,
helped create Israel.
Yeah,
I don't even know how old that is.
Right. Yeah. Right. I mean, I'm no historian, but or mathematician, but it was a while ago. So I'm going to get into that story in just a little bit. I'm going to share a couple stories with you today. The first one is kind of a fun, lighthearted one. I thought you, Casey, specifically would relate to it because I think it comes from somebody who had a marketing agency. So this is what the Modern Commerce Show, I think, is going to turn into a little bit more, is just us sharing some stories and pulling out the insights that we find from it. And same with our guests, just sharing stories, telling stories.
Yeah, we're storytellers at heart. So why would we change it up as soon as we get in front of an audience?
Yeah, for sure, man. All right. So first up, I'm just going to jump right into it. So I'll read this story. This is from somebody, on the interwebs. They commented on this, like, hey, I'm looking for stories thing. And he said, during COVID, we ran a very successful ad campaign for a client. The client was thrilled with it and remains a client until this day, but there was an awkward, humorous bump along the way that drove home a couple of important lessons for us. In the midst of the campaign, I received a scathing email from a contact associated with the client. This particular contact, he does go on to say that contact that was at the client is no longer with them. So they've parted ways. But he spotted a racy ad alongside the YouTube video that this person's company had uploaded. And he was appalled that the company's product was appearing on the same page on YouTube as an ad for a sex toy. So they had to privately email back and explain to him that is most likely a retargeting ad based on your past preferences and browsing history. And, also good luck with the anal beads. Hopefully you choose the right size.
Sorry if it's my confusion here, but I have to ask, just to clarify, this is separate from the banana story, right?
This is not the banana story.
Okay, I was gonna say bananas, sex toys.
Yeah,
we don't need to get
bananas.
Into that,
yeah.
All right.
No.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's hilarious.
This is a warm up story. Yeah.
That is absolutely hilarious. I remember something similar once when we I think we shot some content. This is, I think, even before we used to do podcasting. I think we might have actually shot some kind of ad or something, or at least placed an ad of somebody else's onto a page that we created.
Yeah.
And we sent it to a client of ours. This is, again, years ago. And they watched it and they were like, I don't like how other people, like competitors' videos pop up afterwards. And I'm like,
Well,
that's on you. Like,
that's called
you've been
advertising. Yeah.
right. That's YouTube feeding you another video that they think you'll like. So that's based on
Yeah.
your preferences and what you are watching on YouTube. So like, I think you just outed yourself as being like kind of obsessed with like competitors. So
Right. Yeah. Which is more understandable, I think. You know, it's like, yeah, of course you're checking out your competitors and stuff like that. This
yeah.
dude's like, yeah, I mean, I'm looking for
Well,
mail order brides from
right.
Ukraine.
I mean, I brought it back. I'm trying to bring it back to an actual like more marketing place. I think
Right.
at least this is in my head. The way the story I just told is less about like, oh, like good, like competition, like investigating the competition and doing like actual research like that. And it came off a little bit more like maybe they kind of take a lot from other creator kind of thing like that. I kind of got that vibe
Right.
about it. Like they're insecure about it and they watch other stuff like even more than themselves and stuff like that. So.
Right. Yeah, I think this one, so my biggest takeaway I think on this one is like something I heard, man, who did I hear say this? Somebody who's built some pretty big companies, and that is like kindness is free, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
and when you're running a company, and I'm not sure that if this person was an authority at the client company or not, but when you're running a company, you can be kind or not kind, and it costs the same, right? Either way. Or you can be like understanding or not understanding, and it costs the same either way. Like whether you're a dick or whether you're nice to the people that you're working with, whether that's your vendors or your internal employees or whoever it is, it doesn't cost you any more, and it really doesn't even cost that much more effort. But it does. There is a massive amount more risk with it, right? So when you go and you decide to be a dick, and then you end up being in the wrong, you look like so much more of a dick. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you were like nice about it in the first place, then it just looks like you were curious. You know, hey, I'm just curious about these ads, right? And it might still be a little embarrassing, but at least you weren't like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah. I guess the main thing I would say from that is I think everybody gets it a little bit, being frustrated about things that you don't exactly like, or something happens the way you didn't expect. But and actually, I think there's a obviously there's a time and a place for criticism in the professional world in every industry. But even as far as something that can be a little bit more like petty sounding, I think is where we're kind of diving into a little bit more subjective and stuff. I would say there's even plenty of room for criticism and things like that, just on like a human level. So you're not dealing with these bottled up emotions, but you should probably let something like bug you multiple times. You know what I mean? Like if something happens half a dozen times, you're like, hey, this always bugs me. That's the right time to say it. And also maybe you formulate your thoughts around it a little bit more to still have the effect you want, but not be mean.
Yeah. Maybe instead of sending that sex toy email, maybe you kind of like sit on it for a day, you know, or just
sit on
Google
the sex
it.
Toy?
Yeah. Sit on that sex toy for a day.
That's a long time. I don't think that's the recommended usage for most sex toys. So.
I mean, it just depends on what you're using, man.
Consult your doctor after anything.
Right. Yeah. Hey, we're not
4
doctors.
hours.
Yeah, we're not doctors. Never were.
Yeah.
We're also, you know, I barely even passed geography, so definitely not a doctor.
Yep. Very related to
incredibly related to being a doctor. So yeah, no, I mean, I think this is a good one, and I think this is like anybody who does a client business. I think this is my like ode to client business owners, right? Agency owners, things like that, because everyone has that, PETA client, that pain in the ass client, and like usually it's like you're just in a position where it's like you can't really fire them. And the gurus will tell you like, oh, don't ever work with anybody who's like a pain in the ass, or that like they end up taking more research. Yeah, that's great, except for when they pay for half of your team, right? Like if they're a huge client or what, that's just what it is. That's service. That's the service industry, period. Right. So yeah, I mean, I think it's like, it's always nice when you can be like, oh, actually, that looks like it's probably a retargeting ad. So you're into some
I mean,
weird
hey,
stuff.
I agree that it's super nice when
It's
you are in the
satisfying.
position where you can say F off a client who is a pain in the
Right.
ass to me and my agency. And that can be a real morale booster if that's how like a larger team feels in general about a certain
Yeah.
like that can just coming from like some bigger agency experience. Sometimes those people at like the ground level, let's say working with a client on a more intimate basis, like on a daily basis, if you keep sending it up the ladder, like, man, would really love to move on from these guys kind of thing. And if
And
kind
they
of the
never.
upper, if the executives or whoever is controlling, those types of decisions, if they ever do choose on like your behalf, your team's behalf to part ways with a client, that can go a long way to building like good rapport internally too.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, replacing revenue is tough always. I mean, it's just the way it is. But if you happen to find yourself in a situation where you have somehow a surplus of clients or plenty of revenue coming in, I mean, first of all, congrats to you. Not too many people find themselves with those
Right.
problems necessarily. But yeah, I mean, it is sometimes worth doing.
Yeah, I think my when you are a service company and you do have the people who are working with a client constantly telling you, hey, this client's like a real pain, or this client's very difficult to deal with it, or this client's taking a lot of my time. Uh, I think the communication back down is great either way, right? If you know you can't fire that client, at least telling the team like, hey, we can't fire them. Here's why. Uh, then there's a level of understanding, and
Right.
they get that like, hey, I get it, I've been in your position before and I get that it sucks, we can't fire them, here's why, here would be the alternative, here's what we'd have to do if we fired them, and it's worse than actually just keeping them. That's better than not saying anything, than just being like, okay, thanks for letting me know, and then doing nothing with it, which I think once agencies start doing that, it starts to feel real corporate working there, when you're a team
Yeah.
member, and that's when it, like, a lot of times the service goes downhill a little bit, I think.
And for those team members, I mean, John, I guess a question to you about this being a former head of paid department at a large marketing agency and head of your own agency, before that, even. Um, who do you think are the more typical like employees or team members who get upset with clients? I mean, I guess what I'm asking is, are they more veteran people, highly skilled, or are they the super new entry level positions typically? Like, who do you think, who in your
Ooh,
experience have you seen most frustrated typically? Because I have my opinion. I think I
yeah,
know
that's
where you're going to
interesting.
go.
I actually don't know that I see a pattern on this.
Really?
I think that
I might challenge you on this one.
I
Might.
think that veteran people do a better job. They have like more context for whether somebody's actually a PETA client, or whether they're just, they're not really that bad. You know what I mean? Whereas entry level people might complain about dealing with a client, or entry level people will just be like sometimes surprised at the uncomfortable conversations that you have to have with clients, because like they're kind of like, oh, don't they know? And you're like, oh, no, they never know. This is like one of the normal things. This isn't even a pain
Right.
in the ass client. This is like one of the normal things you have to deal with. So yeah, I think I think a lot of times it's veteran people that you listen to. When it's entry level people, I think that's more of a managerial thing, or a team lead needs to come alongside them and be like, is it really a PETA client, or is it really, or is it like they're just kind of new?
Yeah, I thought you were going to go more down the middle on that one, so I'm glad you
Yeah.
went that way because that's where I was going to go with it. Is that for one with these PETA clients, usually they're high paying, which is why they stick around. If they were a low paying one or kind of a lower level one, more likely you already have or would break up with them. So the odds of kind of a I don't want to say more highly valued team member, but a team member you compensate more heavily and you put on the higher level clients. Those are
Mhm.
the ones who are more likely. They also have a good bit of ego sometimes too. They know what they're talking about and they know that.
Right.
So those are the ones who are a little more clear with their views on certain strategies and things. And I won't. There's a real particular person in mind that I just won't name unless you wanted to. I'm almost sure you know who I'm talking about. But yeah, that's what comes to mind to me is just when somebody gets, I don't want to say too big for the britches, but actually confident in their skills. That's when you might feel more confident also being like, know what, know who sucks? These people,
Yeah.
like, can we get rid of them, please? And unfortunately for that person, a lot of times the answer is like, well, at least not right now.
You know what's funny is that I think that you're like probably thinking of a specific situation, but like this in my role, this has happened so many different times with different
That's what I
people
mean. Like
that I don't know that who you're specifically thinking of, but yeah, we can keep it off the air for sure, but
yeah,
no, I think it's a good lesson, and the other thing that happened there is we learned that the person who sent that like angry emails no longer at the company. That's another thing as a service business is just like sometimes the answer is just like, hey, stick around, right? Like you might be around longer than that team member's around.
sure.
Or sometimes not, sometimes you're not around, like, but a lot of times when there's a situation like that, where there's this friction between, agency and this new team member or a team member, somebody's going to go. And I've had it happen several times where it's like that team member goes. I've had it happen sometimes where the agency goes, and then I've had it happen sometimes where the agency goes, and then later that team member goes, and the original, founder or other team member leader comes back to the agency. So just stick around, don't burn bridges. That's it.
It's actually a pretty solid. Like I know we're focused on a certain situation right now. Yeah. But actually, like stick around, don't burn bridges. Not a bad life motto, honestly. Just in general, like stick to it, stick to what you're doing, and try not to piss people off along the way unnecessarily.
Yep, show up. All right, we're gonna get into the second story about the banana. The banana empire, man.
Banana me up, bro. I'm ready to get
the emperor of the bananas. We're going to get right into that after a quick word from our other episode sponsor for today. What's up, everybody? Today's episode is brought to you by Monk Commerce. It's a super slick in-car upsell app. So if I want to buy these New Balance trainers I'm trying to get in shape, I add them to my cart. My cart opens up and it says, hey, look, you're only $5 away from free shipping. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'll add this to my cart since you recommended it. And now I got my free shipping. But hold up, I'm only $38 away from a free gift. So why don't I add a pair of size 8 New Balance trainers to my cart for my girlfriend? She's got bigger feet than me. And now look at this. It actually automatically added that free gift straight to my cart for me. That will all be there when I check out. Super nifty app, super slick, super quick way to increase your AOV. Go to monkcommerce.com. Try it free on your store for 7 days. Okay, we are back. And we're here to talk about the Banana Man himself. All right, Woo. Casey, this guy, and the reason I wanted to tell you about this, first, I want to shout out someone who's been on our podcast before, Jesse Pooji, and his podcast, The Crazy Ones, with Alex Lieberman, who founded Morning Brew, or was the co-founder of Morning Brew. They were how I originally heard of this guy. Like Jesse brought it up on his pod, and he brought up this book, and I looked more into this guy because I'm like, how does nobody know about him? Like, how is he not one of these like John Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie stories where like people know about it? So this book, and just where the reference for all of this information is coming from, the name of the book is The Fish That Ate the Whale. What is it? The Fish That Ate the Whale. The Life and Times of America's Banana King. So The Fish That Ate the Whale, the Life and Times of America's Banana King. There's just so many, like I would read that. You know what I mean?
There's so many, like, it's just like 4 titles.
America's Banana King.
I mean,
I am the Banana King.
It's one of those things where no word itself is crazy. And it's not that many words, but you just put them together in that particular order. And it's still not that crazy, but it's inherently compelling. Like, what does that even mean? Like, who is America's Banana King, John? Are we going to get a name, by the way, or are you just going to keep calling him Banana King throughout this?
So his name is Sam Zemurray. So it's Zemurr. So it's Z-E Murray, like this is the way you would normally spell Murray. So it might be Zemurray. I don't know. But Sam Zemurray. There's probably a pronunciation on the line on the internet. Nicknamed Sam the Banana Man.
Love it.
So Sam the Banana Man, he's living, I think, in Florida, Miami, something like that, in like kind of down there. And so bananas, first of all, this is a good starting point here. So bananas are a completely capitalistic thing in the United States. They don't grow here. So there's no bananas in the US, right? But somebody at some point in time, this wasn't Sam Zimmer, right? Somebody at some point in time was like in South America and they're like, hey, these fruits are yummy. Like we should bring them to the US and sell them to people, right? So Sam's living in Florida and he's seeing, bananas come off the boat, get loaded up. And what they do is when the bananas aren't green, right? Because they have to be green at that point, because by the time they hit stores, they need to be yellow. This is sometime in the late 1800s. So he's born in 1877. So this is probably 1890 mid. He's a young dude. So they have to be green so all the ones that aren't green when they come off the boat, like if they're yellow, they call them like overripe and they just threw them away. So he sees this happening and he's like, hey, can I just like have those bananas that are overripe, that are yellow? And they're like, yeah, sure. Like he has been, so he's like, so he takes those bananas and he goes then to local street vendors in the area and he sells those bananas for like a really good price to those street vendors. And then the street vendors turn around and flip them. So he's got a little wholesaling business going on here where his cost of goods sold is zero because he's pulling them straight off the boat because these guys were about to throw them away. Right. So smart kid, hustler. He's a hustler kid. This is like, to me, the equivalent of like it's like the fruit banana sales equivalent of like having a lawn mowing business in your neighborhood. You know what I'm saying?
I guess. I think the main difference
already you're like, I don't know, man, this dude seems pretty smart.
Well, this guy, I mean, he's a banana king. You don't see a lot of banana kings mowing lawns.
You already know that he's America's banana. Like if I was telling you this story and I was like, so this is what this kid did, you didn't know he was going to become the banana king.
Fair enough, but at this point, he's at least like a banana prince or duke, at least something like that.
He's a banana knight. So right now he's kind of a banana knight.
The banana knight, okay. I like that. That makes it sounds like Mennonite if you say it too fast. Like now I got like a bonnet on him in this imagery. No, the main difference I would point out from a kid just like mowing lawns is that's like an opportunity that's well known, and it takes like the determination, I guess, and like ability to like run down that opportunity in a neighborhood.
I get you.
But this guy found an opportunity, which is I would say is like the key piece. And then he's not, I think also, I think a lot of people might have that skill set, but to have both of like, I'll find opportunities and have the wherewithal and the stick-to-itiveness to actually run it down. That's where you get somebody who's banana knight worthy, I guess.
Yeah. So the banana knight, he does this, and then like through a series. So I'll kind of skip forward in the story. As you can imagine, through a series of events, he's incredibly savvy. And right now he's running a business at a 100% profit margin. So like not difficult at all to like, he's got cash to invest. He starts hiring other people so that he can distribute to more vendors, and he starts to, and then pretty soon the banana boat people are like, I'm pretty sure that we should start charging you for the, like, why you got all these 10 kids around here with carts, like something's going on here, right? But he's a smart business person, and the thing that I will say about him is that he's a logistical freak, right? And so what he did is he just started working his way up the supply chain. And he's like, all right, I can't be relying on these banana boat people anymore. Like, how do I get a banana boat? How do I get, and through a series of events, through being a logistical freak, through being incredibly savvy and like, stringent with his money, he ends up, he's a good businessman. He buys his own land, like a big plot, like a large, many thousands of acres in Honduras, and starts growing his own bananas, right? Because again, you can't grow bananas in the United States. He's a U.S. native, but he basically creates a banana sort of empire
just
in
to be
Honduras.
Clear, you're not saying there's any kind of like illegality to growing bananas. It's just like
they don't grow here.
A climate thing.
They don't grow here. Yeah, correct. Right. Maybe there are some places or technology where you can grow bananas in like Florida. Florida would be probably the place, right? If any place. But they don't grow here. So he's in Honduras. I actually don't even think they grow in like Mexico. So at least at this point in time. So he's in Honduras. He has this large plot of land in Honduras. Now he's growing his own bananas. He's like, nobody's ever going to mess with my supply chain again. I own the land. I own the, banana trees. I own, like my supply chain is cool. But he had started on the sales side, right? So he had the distribution, and then he just worked his way back in supply chain. But then like his operational mastery, like his operational optimization freakishness really came into play, because I don't know, most banana farms produce X amount of bananas per acre per day or whatever. His was like 2x or 3x, right? And then even the things like, oh, like how do I take care of these yellow ones? Like he kept that same thing going where it's like the yellow ones, you know, we don't have to throw those away and all of this stuff, right? So he's like just growing this banana empire. But the biggest issue he has is that he's in Honduras, right? And so the US owed a bunch of money to the UK at the time. And so they passed a tariff on Honduran goods. So they were going to do a deal with Honduras where they were going to pass a tariff on imported goods because they were essentially trying to like raise money, find money to not be in debt to the UK. I don't like fully understand the full political thing there. But basically this guy's like, you know, he goes to the US government and he's like, hey, you can't do this. And they're like, we don't care about your stupid banana business. Like this is real world stuff, right? Like get out of
here.
Yeah, get out. At this point, he's probably like a banana, maybe a banana prince, definitely royalty, you know, definitely. He might not be first in line to the throne, but he's got like, you know,
he's in the mix.
I don't know if he's probably not like Jon Snow, you know, but he's probably like Brandon, right? He's like a Brandon Stark at this point, not first in line and not for the throne, but he's definitely an important piece,
like a second or third born son of the true banana king,
of the true banana, of like the fruit, you know, ruler of the world,
of the banana industry.
You're right, exactly, or the fruit industry, let's call it. But he's specifically focuses on bananas, so that's why, right? Because he's Justin Winterfell on bananas, which is a weird comparison because Winterfell bananas most certainly would not grow there, but
yeah. No.
Yeah, so that's kind of where he's at right now, but like also, you know, the reason I made the Game of Thrones reference because, you know, like this is also a world where it's like very reasonable that the first in line will die. Like, you know, like this is that's just the world that we live in. Anyway,
can you remind me what age we're in here? I've forgotten already.
So at this point we would be like late 1800s, early 1900s.
Okay.
You know, so like we're like pre-World War I even.
People are like, photography, like
yeah,
what? That's nuts, magic.
Yeah, exactly, right. So
reference.
So the U.S. government laughs him out of there. They're like, get out of here, you stupid banana seller. You know, we're doing real stuff. So he's like, all right, well, look, what do I have? I have a bunch of money and I have a bunch of land in Honduras. So what he does is he goes and raises a private army in Honduras. Hires a private army in Honduras, finds a former Honduran president and is like, hey man, you good to be president again? And this guy's like, sure. And he runs a coup in Honduras.
Banana coup?
He runs a banana coup, uses his private army to overthrow the Honduran president, puts his guy in there. His guy doesn't do the deal with the US, so there's no tariff. So he's like, yeah, good, I can sell my bananas. He's like, okay, US, you won't take care of me, because he's a US citizen, right? And he has a US business. He's like, US won't take care of me. Like, I guess I'll just take care of it on the South American end. And the way you take care of things on the South American end, it's a little different. It's a little different over there.
I have so many questions.
Yes. By the way, before you ask your questions, this is like a third of the way through the book. This happens.
Okay.
There's a lot more. There's a lot more.
Sounds like there's a lot, but this is the first like hard left turn. I have so many questions. Can you fill me in on the context of the Honduran politics? Like what like is that like a dictatorship or like what kind of system?
I don't know that. I don't know that much about that. I don't think it's like a democracy.
Right. I mean, obviously, like running a coup, like certainly it wasn't afterwards.
No, he's I think that the way that a lot of South American politics is pretty much how I just described. Like if someone has money, they become president. Like,
right, sure.
You know, like that's how it works.
I mean, but
I'm going off of like hearsay, you know, accounts of people I know who have spent time in South America or whatever. But they're like, it's just like if you ask them that stuff like that, they're like, there's just it's an irrelevant question to ask. Like, well, what is it? Is it like a democracy? Is it a dictatorship? Or it's like it's who has money has power. Like that's how it works.
A little looser, maybe.
A little loosey goosey.
Less official, kind of like, no, we're in charge now. And if you're big enough and scary enough and rich enough, they're like, yeah, you are actually in charge now. Sure.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. You got all the guns. Right. You got all the guns. Enough. You're in charge. Yeah.
I got lands, I got bananas, and I got an ex-president. That's all you need to run a coup in Honduras.
Yeah, I like how he didn't want to be president either. He's like, that sounds like a lot of work. Like this guy who used to be president, which the other question I have, and that I don't know, because I didn't read the full book. I read like footnotes on this, and like, where did he find the former president? Like, how does somebody become a former president in Honduras? Like, that seems like a job that, like, oh, the only way you're a former president is if you're not alive anymore, right? Like, so
there's only one way out.
There's only one way out. Yeah. Anyway,
no, I don't think they're quite that level. I mean, jeez.
I mean, it's not the Bloods, but yeah. So anyway, that's like, of course, after this. So this is he starts having like, now he's set a standard at this point. Like, he has, you know, basically a private army. But most fruit companies own land and like a lot of stuff. They own land and things in South America. So he's got land in like Honduras and Guatemala and stuff like that. But so does United Fruit, which was like the biggest. They were like, you know, they're like the King Robert or the, you know, Lannisters or whatever.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
the power
this is becoming way more clear that you're actually telling a story about like Daenerys Targaryen. Really, she's amassing an army, like getting like former like respected officials from like the current. Like, we were off. We started in the wrong location. It's okay. Yeah. You aren't a geography expert, as noted at the top of the show. It's okay.
Yeah, I don't know anything about shapes. So there's it took you, Matt. That joke took you a second.
It's a good joke. It's quality joke.
Yeah. So
and if you didn't get that joke, it's okay.
Look up geography. Yeah. So yeah, in any case, United Fruit, which is like the power that be at this point, obviously this guy's on their radar now because they're like,
that's the actual name. You didn't make that up. United Fruit.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in that, his company is not named that. So his company is the company that would eventually become Chiquita Bananas. Yeah. So but like, stay tuned. There's more. But so United Fruit, obviously he's on their radar now because it's like, this guy ran a coup, right? Like, you can't run a coup and stay under the radar. People notice. So so United Fruit, they start kind of hiring their own private army too. Like, at this point, they're like, I guess to be in the fruit game, you have to have a South American army. And they start having these like basically land battle skirmishes. Like, there's like fruit wars in Guatemala going on at this point.
Does United Fruit have a flagship fruit as well?
I don't know. I think that this would specifically be the banana wars, you know?
I mean, that's what I was like. Maybe they're big in apples or something, and I'm like, is this like banana v apples?
So I think United Fruit is the juggernaut because they're in a lot of fruit, you know. And this guy's like, I'm just a banana man, you know.
Wait, the banana tangent here, just to like mix it up, keep it lively. Banana v fruit, John. Which camp are you in?
Banana
actual
v
fruit. Actual
all fruit.
No, sorry, banana v apple is what I meant to say. Just because
I'd be an apple. I'd be an apple guy personally. Yeah? You know,
me too.
I'm like the guy who I would eat the banana off the boat. Like, by the time it gets to the store, I'm like, it might be a little too ripe for me.
You want the green? You like the green?
I want it green. Yeah, I want it green.
No.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. I'll go like a couple flecks even of black on it before.
No. Oh, that'll make me throw.
But we're apple guys. What's your favorite apple?
Doesn't matter.
Favorite apple?
I like the Red Delicious. You know, I like Gala.
Okay.
I mean, you're in Washington. Are you connoisseur of apples?
I like quite a few different kinds of apples.
Are you green apple
like
guy?
A seasonal thing. It's a seasonal thing, but if I did have to pick like one style of apple for the rest of my life, I think I'd have to go with the Granny Smith, like the kind of a sour guy. And they're more manageable. Not that like, oh, this apple I could not possibly.
Yeah, how could I ever eat all this? Yeah,
but you know what I mean. You can slam down one, you double dip, and get like 2 Red Deliciouses is crazy. But 2 Granny Smiths.
That's crazy talk. Yeah,
normal. That's like the serving size. Anyway,
I have one gripe, not a grape, a gripe with Red Delicious.
Jeez.
And
love it.
And that gripe is that the only issue that I have with Red Delicious is sometimes they can be bruised and you cannot know. Like they hide their bruises well.
I see.
They're kind of like
that's
they're kind of like
true,
they're like an abused middle class housewife. Like, they just hide their bruises well. You know what I'm saying?
And they those bruises are like that apple that species. I don't know. They're already like particularly like mushier than other ones. So like a bruise on that is inedible. Inedible. I'm sorry, I derailed us a little bit, but I think you were about to get to like in impeachment.
No,
or something
he
of the banana.
he.
I don't know.
I see.
I'm just
No,
yeah.
so he's having these like he's basically having a private war with United Fruit, and so now the U.S. government is getting involved because they're like, hey, you guys are U.S. based companies technically, like you might own land over here, but you're U.S. based companies, and like you're kind of killing each other's employees, and I guess the U.S. government isn't big fans of that.
Sure.
So they're like, on the one hand, I think it's like the State Department or the Department of Commerce or something like that. So the State Department wants them to merge, but then like the Department of Commerce is like, they can't merge, then it's a monopoly, right? So there's like this whole thing on the US side too, where they're like, hey, stop killing each other. You have to be one company now. But then they're like, no, we can't make them be one company. Our whole thing is like, we're not like, we have to break up monopolies. Like, can't make them be a company and then break them up. So eventually the State Department wins. They have to merge. So he sells. Go ahead. You have a question.
I have a question. Yeah. Do you have any references? And I know this, I'm just spouting like nonsense questions at you, but this one's actually for context. Like, do you have any general body count or anything
No,
of dot?
I don't think they do.
How about
I don't
this?
think they do. I think they're like,
How about this? A John Coyle exclusive, like random, totally not like don't take it seriously. Guess what?
I would say dozens, but probably not hundreds.
Okay, dozens of people are dead over bananas, guys. This is a big deal.
Yeah. So it's like a series of skirmishes, right? But again, this is coming from the footnotes, so that's just a random ass guess. It's a rag.
Oh my god, bananas! There must have been a ton of guerrilla warfare.
It's a good one. It's a good one. Yeah. We need like some sound effects, All right, so he sells is what he does. He sells like a large portion of his shares to United Fruit, Chiquita, like, or whatever the company was then, gets absorbed by United Fruit. He remains a shareholder, and not like the majority shareholder, and he steps out of operations. So he's like, all right, you guys got it. Steps out of operations. And then United Fruit proceeds to essentially run the entire business. Now that they have the monopoly, they run the entire business into the ground. And it's like not profitable anymore. And like, he's like, I'm not making any money from the, like, he's supposed to be making passive money from it. And I think a big part of the reason he did that is because while this is all going on the side here, like his family's kind of a wreck, right? Like they're kind of a shit show. They're like in shambles, which makes a lot of sense. He's in South America running coups and like starting wars, right?
There's a lot of stuff going on. Yeah,
there's a lot going on, right? And so they're like, his whole family is like this family that has a lot of money and like not a lot of structure, and no father figure for the kids, which is lots of research shows that's important, right? So anyway, so he was trying to like be like, oh, hey, cool, yeah, like here's my out, right? And then United Fruit proceeds to run it into the ground, and he's like, I mean, all of my money and everything is tied up in this. So he goes to the United Fruit board, like of directors that are like in New York or whatever, and he's like, hey, you guys are like, the operations here are not efficient, and he's trying to like tell them, give them advice on how they should run the business. And they're like, yeah, what do you know, you stupid banana salesman? Like, like they really are like, still like, yeah, you're just you're just a dumb banana guy. You don't know anything about any other fruit. Right. Yeah. So basically what he does is, he talks to the board. They say, he doesn't know. So he goes, and this is the board. They're not all necessarily shareholders. So he goes to, in all the other shareholders, he gets proxies for all the other shareholders, like people. And like, this is right after the board told him, like, kind of talked him out of the room. And so he like does this quick. He goes and gets proxies for all the other shareholders and just like walks in one day and is like, you guys are all fired. We voted you out. Like, and he runs a freaking another coup inside United Fruit and takes back over, just hostile takes over his own company, United Fruit. The proxies for all the shareholders vote him in as like the acting CEO or whatever. And yeah, so like this dude's run now a government coup and a coup on like the biggest fruit company in the world without like it just all like through back doors. You know what I'm
He's
saying?
cuckoo. He's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
Banana Guy is a baller. All right, like he's
What?
hardcore. All right, so
Oh my God.
so then he grows. Obviously, he grows it back up, which is ironically that he grows it and it's fruit and stuff like that. But yeah, and he grows it back up. And he gets to the point where, because they merged, he now owns like 70% of the land in Guatemala. 70% of the land of all of Guatemala. He owns most of it.
Wait, Guatemala or Honduras?
Oh, he owns some Honduras too, but like he owns 70% of Guatemala.
I mean, this is getting to be like a significant amount of like middle/South America. I don't know if those is that middle South?
There's people in South America, from what I've heard, people in South America, again, this is hearsay from other people I know who've spent time there. People in South America say that there's no such thing as Central America.
Oh.
So they consider Mexico North America, which technically it is.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And then it's South America where South America starts. They're like, there's no such thing as Central America. Like that's something that North Americans or that's actually specifically something that people in the US and Canada made up so that they could not count Mexico as part of North America.
Wait.
That's how South Americans see it.
Hold on. That sounds like a lot of.
It's very racist.
Potentially. I've always considered Mexico, I guess, part of North America. Like I thought those were like the three countries. But then, like, I guess I did think of Central America as a thing, kind of, because I always thought like Panama Canal down, where the, where it starts.
I get you, like where it gets thin.
There's a clear shape
right there.
Yeah, exactly. There's a clear shape. If you were looking like, what is South America? Circle it on a map. I think most people would be like, well, there's a clear, like it looks kind of like the other piece to Africa. You wouldn't normally grab that other stuff. So they're saying they're claiming from Mexico southward.
Yeah,
is South America in your interpretation.
Yeah, that's my interpretation of other people's interpretations.
Sorry, another derailment, but that's what I'm here for. Baby.
Double hearsay interpretation. Yeah.
There we go.
So anyway, he now owns a whole bunch of Guatemalan land, and this is when. So at this point, we're probably right around the 60s or something like that, 50s, 60s, where communism is getting popular. And in some places,
technological reference is like color TV.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Whoa. Or like, I mean, there's lots of 60s music we could be referencing here. Yeah. So. Sure. It's like the Beatles are like, who are these guys? Oh, they seem pretty good, actually. I like that "Hold Your Hand" song. So that's kind of what's going on right now.
Their haircuts are a little out there.
Yeah, what's with the bowl cuts or whatever those are? They're not really bowl cuts. They're like
they're Bieber weird. Before the Bieber. The OG
they had the Bieber. They had the OG Bieber. I thought you said Beaver at first. I'm like, I've never heard of the Beaver cut, but
the Beaver cut. Yeah, it's where it's like a beaver just gnaws the hair off your head until you have no hair left, basically, or until you die, because I don't think that would work out. Anyway, back to the Banana King.
He owns 70% of the land in Guatemala. A new president comes into Guatemala who is somewhere on the spectrum of either just a full communist, like, or at least communist sympathetic. He's in that kind of zone, right? And he starts privatizing the Banana Man, Sam the Banana Man's land. Meaning he's just saying, like, that's not your land anymore. It's our land now. So he just starts taking chunks of land from him. So at this point, he's like, hey, you can't do that. And the guy's like, I can. I'm the president of Guatemala. Guatemala, I do know from, again, people who have spent time in South America, is a particularly corrupt South American country, which is probably why it's probably why they were operating there, honestly. So he goes back to a US-based PR firm. So this time he's like, all right, I can't do it on the South American end. Let's go back to the North American end. He goes back to this US-based PR firm and starts running this like fear campaign about like, oh, Guatemala is becoming communist, and like starts drawing attention to it. And he gets
to run a third coup.
And he gets the FBI involved. And the FBI basically runs another coup in Guatemala to remove this. So officially it was the FBI who removed this Guatemalan president.
I saw that one coming, though. Were you impressed? I sniffed out the third one.
I mean, dude, the coup is his playbook.
I was going to say, at this point, though, that's like, I'm guessing at some point there's going to be a fourth coup. That's what this guy does.
The Banana King is the king of the coup. All right.
This guy's never had like an honest job ever, by the way. Like creating a business is an honest job. Don't get me wrong. But like, it sounds like he's never been like, I'd like to like work at your shop, sir, or whatever. He's like, nah, I take over shit. I take shit over. It. That's what I do. Well,
and to be fair, that was actually more the mindset of business at that time, right? If you think of the Industrial Revolution and stuff like that, It was like, yeah, look, you haul my steel because I have to make you haul my steel. But if you book with me, or my oil, like if you think about John Rockefeller and the Vanderbilts, like his whole thing was like, yeah, you know, he did this huge deal with the Vanderbilts. The Vanderbilts raised his prices. And then he was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to build some big ass pipes that carry my oil instead. Like more expensive, but just to say F you. Like
that's an important like piece of context too, because I think a lot of people think now today, like, oh, there's these ruthless businessmen who don't care about people.
Oh, dude, it was so much worse. Yeah,
like we have it so easy compared to how it used to be.
Yeah, I mean, there was a reason antitrust and monopoly laws came into place, because it was like there was a point where it's like, oh, you can't crack in. If you're not in, you're out. Like, so anyway, yeah, he runs another coup on the South American president. It was officially not the FBI, but the CIA who executed it. So yeah, that was the third coup. There's one other kind of like off, like, and so that was sort of like the last coup that he ran, and he was like, I think older at that point. I think he died in the 70s. And yeah, I mean, the whole thing is like basically his family was kind of, you know, in his family's in shambles, but dude built, you know, a banana and eventually a full-on fruit empire, and ran a bunch of government coups. Another sort of aside is, I think he's Jewish, and he was instrumental in creating the state of Israel, because after World War II, basically there was this whole thing going on where like Jewish people didn't feel like there was any place that they could live where they felt safe. So they're like, let's create a new place, which I did look it up. The state of Israel was created in 1948. So like, they were like, let's create this new place. And it went to the UN. The UN voted on it, and the UN was 50-50 on the first vote. And then Sam the Banana King started calling people up and was like, hey, you want to keep your job? Like, vote yes for it on Israel. And they voted on it again. And he had like, and they had swung, you know, 10 or 20 votes. That's the story. Of course, I'm sure there was more behind the scenes stuff going on, but that's the story, is that he was like, oh yeah, what's that you need? Oh, you need me to get Israel through? Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I'll make a couple calls. That's the Banana King, man. Takeaways. What are your takeaways here? What do you even like? Oh, here's what you can apply to your business.
I mean, I got to start with just other takeaways first, because I'm still just processing. First, clear takeaway: recency bias.
My first clear takeaway: how is there not a movie about this guy?
I mean, coming this fall, obviously.
Yeah, seriously.
Initial takeaway: I'm being honest. That DOB on Israel surprises the hell out of me. I thought it was way older than that. Obviously, the culture surrounding Israel is, you know, there's a long history to that. But I thought even officially Israel,
like the official state creation of Israel.
Yeah, I thought. I mean, you would have given me I mean, I would have guessed it's older than the U.S. Honestly, that's just how ignorant I am.
It's because Israel it's a person, right? Like it's not. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I get what you're saying. Like there's particulars about it, but yeah, I mean. That blew me away first and foremost.
Yeah.
Secondly,
not great at geography or history.
Yeah.
Or geology. Not a geology king either.
Not a history pod. This guy, I mean, you said he was around like 13 when he started in this.
No. I mean, so he was probably a little older than that. So it was probably the 1890s. Yeah. So he might have been a late teenager, early like young adult.
You know, I think like this isn't great. I'm just reacting in real time here. Yeah. But you know, when you meet a couple,
but by the way, this is like the main period of time he was building up Chiquita United for all that is during World War I and World War II.
I mean, yeah, there were plenty of things going on in the time frame that we covered today, for sure. But like one of the main things that I take away from this, and I guess this, I can bring this to a businessy type of place, I think, is I need an example first. So have you met couples that like met in high school?
Yeah.
And they've never been with anybody else, basically, you know, not in any like significant way. And they've stuck together, and like, not only does it like work, you're like, oh, you guys could never be with anybody else. And I'll never have a relationship quite like the one you guys have with anybody. You know what I mean?
Right. Okay.
That's like something born out of like, we're high schoolers. We don't really know, or high school age. We don't really know how the world works at all. Yeah. But I'm building like my future foundationally on this relationship. Right. And it feels like this guy saw some like overly ripe bananas, and he did that with those.
He saw ripe opportunity.
And talking about that like stick to itiveness kind of thing. Like he I think I was right. He had an eye for finding an opportunity first and foremost.
Yeah.
But like incredible follow through to be so determined to have your fruit business be successful that you stage not one, not two, but three
Yeah.
government like national coups in multiple countries.
And I technically don't know that he did anything like illegal. I mean, you know what I mean? I guess.
I think that's probably like letter of the law for like those countries. Like probably not, because that's kind of how they operate it, or probably, but that's like pretty par for the course, I guess is what I mean to say.
Right. Like there's no way to operate here if you're not being illegal. Yeah.
Right. So like the fact that he did that though, like, I mean, just speaks to like determination of like people like to like, again, taking it to somewhere now. We say like, man, can you believe, you know, yada, yada, insert guru or whatever here, you know, like a Gary Vee or whatever, like, oh, what an entrepreneur. Like, you know what I mean? Like he has such entrepreneurship. Sorry, Gary Vee ain't got nothing on the Banana King. You know what I mean?
The Banana King is the king.
That guy had
Banana Man's a baller, dude.
He was never going to entertain another possible business model. It sounds like I said, like he found that early love in life. And even though he might be like, you know what, if I could have done it over again, it would have been, you know, horses. I should have been in the horse business, you know? Yeah. No, he didn't have. Same thing with the guy who met his wife in high school. He's like, I have not even looked at another woman since.
I have no doubt.
Yeah, like that's how this works, you know? Like, just incredible. This man had such a relationship with bananas and such a mind for, I mean, I would say business.
A lot of it. So what I left out a lot of
for business feels like it does not do him justice.
That's right. So a lot of what I left out, because I hit the highlights of like, this is the crazy stuff. He was really like, and I can't emphasize this enough. He operationally and like in terms of like managing logistics and operations, he just saw so many things that nobody else ever thought of. Like, so like that whole thing where it's like he sniffed out an opportunity. He did that over and over and over and over again. Right. Like that. He was incredibly good at that. Right. So yeah.
Bloodhound.
It's a little less exciting, you know, than running government coups, but they're a large scale representation of his ability to sniff out like, how am I gonna, this is the result I want. How do I get that?
And you're right. If Chiquita had a guy like that behind the steering wheel today, there would no doubt be like, you know, one of those 90-minute or maybe even like one of those like 6-part miniseries on Netflix about this guy.
Well, a lot of people
like
don't
the
like
most
him.
incredible promotion for Chiquita or for whatever brand?
Yeah.
Because like that's that kind of like perfect, like we're not outright selling you bananas, but we are.
Here's our story.
Yeah, we are imprinting a story about bananas on you. And meanwhile, there's all this like pseudo subliminal, like Chiquita is obviously the brand. You know, I don't even know if there's another. I don't know how many banana brands exist. I'll admit my ignorance.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I don't care to know anymore though. Like this
there's only one now.
I'm all in.
One brand of bananas that I'll eat.
That's it. I mean, now that once you have the Banana King, you can't go back.
Yeah, that's what they say. That is what they say.
What's the moral of this story, John? I know we got to get out of here in the next few here. What's the moral of this story?
That's what I was trying to ask you, man. I don't.
There's like 10 morals.
So I think
my moral was that like determination factor.
Yeah,
like,
I think that's it. So what I'll say here is a lot of people the jury's sort of out on him. Like not everybody thinks he's great. Like I think we hear this and we're, you know, we probably lean a little more capitalistic, right, than many. Sure. And we hear this and we're like, this dude's a baller, right? But like, you know, he just wasn't afraid to get it done. He did what he needed to do to get it done. And not everybody's a big fan of that. And that's fine. But what I will say about his success is that I think, and this is nothing new. It's sort of the 10,000 hours rule, right? Of like, if you stick with kind of like one thing for long enough, you'll have relative success. Like it's strange not to. If you stick with one thing for long enough and you're focused on one thing and you work on and build and like care about one thing for long enough, it's really strange not to get pretty good at that thing and to be relatively successful at that thing. So I think that's probably like the only real takeaway I can say about the banana guy that's like currently relevant, because I'm definitely not going to advise people to go run, you know, government coups to increase their profit
No,
margins.
I heard it. I heard it, and all the people heard it. If anybody is trying to put your business out of business, you have a big competitor. You need to take a page out of this guy's playbook, run a coup on that
Hire a
nation's
private army.
government. And I mean, if that doesn't work, do it a couple more times and then it's bound to work. Maybe
It will.
also get involved with like founding another country, like halfway across the world.
Yeah.
And that's the recipe for success, obviously.
Obviously. You didn't know that already? All right. Well, we should wrap up. I'll wrap it up here. If you are listening to this podcast on Apple Podcast or Spotify or SoundCloud or something like that, please review the podcast, rate the podcast, give us 5 stars, review the podcast. Tell us what you think. What's your takeaway about the Banana King? Like, what's the actual applicable thing that you could say about like today, business today, that you can take from this guy? Let us know in the review. If you are on YouTube, let us know that same thing in the comments. If you made it this far in the video, I got to imagine that you're pretty enthralled in the Banana Man story. So let us know in the comments. What's the takeaway here? What's the moral of the story? Or is it just a good story? If you're on YouTube, also subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon so you get notified when we have new videos. Also like this video so YouTube knows like, hey, more people got to know. More people, I got to get YouTube needs to get the word out about the Banana King, right? No, more people need to know the story.
I agree, John. And I think it was a slip of the tongue there, but I thought I heard you say Utah tube for a second. And that would be, if there was one of the 50 states in the union that made their own YouTube, I think Utah would be right up there. They'd be like, we don't want to be involved with the rest of this.
They've done a lot of stuff like that. Like VidAngel came from YouTube and stuff, or not from YouTube, from Utah. Yeah.
Also, if another fruit coup like sprouted out of the US, I'd go Utah with it. They have South American connections as well. So anyway, get with the Utah, form a banana company, stage a coup on the government, and keep watching Modern Commerce, listening to Modern Commerce, rate, review, all the things John said, and we'll see you next time.